All right. So how's that? Is that better?
Now there we go.
There we go. All right. Thank you. See, it takes a village. It truly does.
It truly does.
And so if you are an ATD Power member, yay, thank you. If you're not, consider that, because local benefits are great. You know, we put on webinars like this, but really being a Power member, there's so much benefit to that. Freebies they give you, as well as, you know, discounts on their great learning and just the things that they share like every other day in email with, you know, powerful stuff related to things happening in the spectrum of the world that we live in, of helping others develop their skills. So if you're not, I highly recommend that. And that's it with the required announcements. Now we're going to have fun. So as I said, we've got an amazing panel here who is here to share their knowledge. And maybe what we do is just go in order of how they are in this slide. So Myra, you're up first. You've got a couple of minutes. Tell us about yourself, the wonderful work you do.
Yeah, so definitely. It looks like
I accidentally spotlighted you, and I apologize. I meant to bring it in my system. We can
Lisa.
But also, Myra, do you see that you and I are twins?
Yeah, I cloned myself.
I mean, no one can tell us apart.
I know.
That's what happens when Rosa puts together the slide deck like 3 minutes literally before we start. Okay.
Lady, I understand that.
Yeah,
So,
there we go.
I have successfully cloned myself, so thank you.
That's going to happen one day, I think, Myra. I think you're going to do that.
Well, we'll see. So anyway, hi everyone. I really appreciate being invited to this. I'm Myra Roldan. I'm a senior technical program manager at AWS, but I'm also on the ATD ICE advisory committee. So I am in Virginia right now because we are reviewing proposals for ATD ICE 2023 in May. So I've been on the advisory committee for 3 years now. And I've read a lot of proposals. I've submitted a lot of proposals, and I have hopefully some good tips for you guys, because we do need more new speakers and some new perspectives, and also we need more diversity. And I'm hoping that this will help that. I'm really excited that ATD Central Florida is doing this. So kudos to you guys for putting on this session.
All right, next we've got Ron.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me. My name is Ron Price. I'm in North Carolina, that's where I live, and I am the Chief Learning Officer for UConn Learning. At UConn, we are the strategic training partner for Articulate, which explains most of our role at conferences. We are usually teaching hands-on sessions, and we provide those at a variety of different conferences, and we do that when we're not at conferences. So it's just kind of us doing it with a different audience. But we've submitted quite a few different proposals over the years. I've presented at a lot of the Learning Solutions conferences for the last 14 years, even some of those conferences that don't exist anymore. And I just got back last night from Training Mag in Austin, Texas. So fresh off of a conference 24 hours ago. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ron. All right, next we've got JD.
Hi, everybody. I'm JD. So I'm in Orlando, Florida, right behind the Magic Kingdom, if anyone needs to find me. So I'm local to the Central Florida chapter. By title, I'm Chief Learning Architect of a learning technology company called Exonify, which is located just outside of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So I am a remote employee. I'm on the technology side of the conversation today, but I came from the practitioner side. So I've spent half my career working in operations and learning and development with companies like Disney, which is why I live behind the Magic Kingdom, Kaplan, the world's largest education company, and AMC, the movie theater company, before I joined the technology vendor side of the world about 6.5 years ago. I've spoken at, let's just say, every L&D and HR event in North America, a variety of international events, online and in person. I was on the ATD Tech Knowledge Advisory Committee for about 3 years before they kicked me off. I was only allowed to be there for 3 years. But so I've been on the kind of selection side of the conference event experience as well. And I think as a speaker, I now know kind of what it means to speak as a practitioner. So I submit my own proposals for different events that I want to engage with, as well as speak on behalf of a technology vendor. So sometimes I go to events on behalf of Exonify and present sessions alongside my customers. So I kind of straddle both sides of the world when it comes to being a speaker. And yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, JD. All right, and up next is Sierra.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sierra. I'm really stoked to be here today. I'm the program manager with the Learning Guild, and I focus primarily on our spring conference, Learning Solutions, and that's where the practitioners in L&D world get together and share what works. So I get real up close and personal with all of these session proposals. So I'm excited to share my experience with that. Prior to my time with the Guild, I worked with a nonprofit called Jobs for America's Graduates and did a little bit of everything L&D for them. And that's kind of where I started my journey with conferences by designing, running, and speaking at their national training seminar. It was crazy. So I've done all of the proposals to speaking, designing, and formatting, all of that. I'm still trying to find my stride with this work-life balancing, and I'm really wishing I had a glass of wine with Rosina right now, but I feel like I should share some of that like life stuff too. This is my first time on a panel with y'all, and you do it chef's kiss. Right, there are some incredible people here, so I'm really grateful that I am here today, and I am super excited because normally I have class right now, but I am finished with my classes for my doctoral program in professional design and performance technology. So double wishing that this was wine with you, Rosina, today. So happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
I'll refill just for you. How about that?
Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah. Well, something she didn't share is that she's wicked good at card games. We had a blast learning solutions during the game crawl. So yes, she is wicked good. All right, Pam.
Hi, I've got to share that my colleague Sierra is wicked good at everything she does. So that is not a surprise. I work for the Learning Guild with Sierra. I'm the program manager for the Learning Conference, which is coming right up in early November in Orlando. But as a team, we all review all the submissions for all of the Learning Guild shows. So we look at thousands of session submissions every year, and we are looking at the Learning Solutions ones for next spring right now. My background before, so I've worked at the Guild as a writer for their magazine, and now I'm on the programming team. Prior to the Guild, I worked in journalism and technical writing, and I've got lots of years of experience as a writer and copy editor. And I am really excited to be on a panel. This is great people. I know all of you from different L&D places, and it's a really great panel. I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam. And last but not least, Lisa.
So I feel like I'm a really big outlier here because I do not know all of you guys, although I do recognize Ron Price's name. Got to say that. So 19 years ago, I started ITSM Academy. I'm also a co-founder of the DevOps Institute and the XLA Collab. So I come to my experience through training sort of via my service management and IT management background, but I have been a national I've presented nationally and internationally for multiple conferences within the service management space for the last 20 years. And I'm here because Sean and I are such good old friends, and he thought maybe I could add a little bit of spice to the conversation. So I hope I can do that.
I believe you will. I believe you most certainly will. All right, so welcome panel, and welcome all our guests that have arrived. Scott, you've been giving your magical powers again. Thanks for rejoining. And Sean, I'll let you go ahead and kick it off with starting the first round of questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. One of the things I wanted to do is to take the opportunity to kind of frame this up. And I've mentioned to the panel speakers as well, we were thinking about panel and conference speaking presentations or authoring papers is one of those before, during, and after components. So we wanted to have basically 3 different discussions. a discussion about the getting in, the RFP or request for a proposal, request for speaking, and to get from all of you as panel members, what are some of the good, the bad, and the ugly, the tips and the good things, but also those ones that kind of make you kind of shake your head and go, oh, not this. And that kind of conversation engaged about submitting the proposal. And then we thought we could shift things over a little bit. And so I'm going to try to keep the conversation from a time perspective, maybe about 15 minutes-ish before we start shifting into the, now when we're presenting, what are some things as program managers or panel managers that you look for in when you're walking around the conference hall and hearing people present and going, I think I want them back. And at the end of a conference, what are some of the follow-up things that a conference presenter would do? As we get talking on those things, and I'll throw out that first section questions for anyone who wants to, I'd really love to get engagement from the participants listening in. So I'd love for you to throw in the chat, how many of you have spoken at conferences? How many of you have not yet but want to? And how many of you are maybe a little uncertain about doing this at all, or maybe you've submitted and haven't gotten in yet or are trying to? So that kind of information in the chat will help make this conversation and our panelists able to give more information. So with that, let me turn things over to that first question. What are some of the good, the bad? I love that Rosa put this way and I loved it. The good, the bad, and the ugly of submission and I'd love to hear from our program managers and the folks who are already kind of running those conferences right now on both the training side, but then also Lisa from the IT and technical side as well.
And feel free to either raise your hand, unmute yourself, or put the question in the chat. We're monitoring the chat, and we can then raise your question to the panel speakers if you have one, and that's for the audience. But so who wants to go first with what's the good, bad, and ugly? Should we follow the rhythm we had with Myra and then the rest chiming in, or it's up to you guys?
Yeah, I can go first because I'm like knee deep right now in conference proposals. So I want to say that if you're interested in speaking, you have to have a few elements. It's like, do your research and figure out like what are some trending topics that you could potentially have some expertise in, and make a list of topics for yourself that you could potentially present on. And then when you're writing your proposal, be sure that you are clear as to like what the takeaway is, like what's the on-the-job application, what are you going to do during the session? And I will tell you that reviewers are different, right? As we read proposals, every reviewer is different. I will tell you that I tend to be a little extra hard if I see a lecture. That's an absolute no for me, because no one wants to be lectured to. So make sure that you have some kind of interactivity, something that people can engage with. And please do not, we always preach this about, like, don't be a sage on the stage. Like, please don't be a sage on the stage. Like, that's like the worst thing ever. I have left many sessions at the very beginning where I just walk out because it's just like so bad that, people are just going to stay there and not be engaged. So think about your learners. They are your learners. And make sure you spell check and don't use any foul language, because using like bad words in your titles and stuff, you might think it's clickbaity and like hip or whatever, but especially for international conferences, a lot of terminology can be offensive. And so you need to think globally when you're creating your sessions.
That's interesting and a great point, because some terms, I think in the IT terms, where there are a few of those that were set up by people whose technical names are offensive in different cultures, right? So be careful about those pieces. I love this idea as well. You're saying, I always think in training objectives, right? At the end of this session, you want those kind of takeaways. That's awesome. And a couple of folks are already coming in and commenting that they've done speaking, obviously as trainers, but maybe are looking to speak at conferences. So that's excellent. Who else has got some do's and don'ts for us from our panel, or things you've seen that you've gone, this is one that I remember that was a gotcha?
I'll jump in. I've been reviewing sessions this week too. We at the Guild, we specifically do look for takeaways. So that's a great tip from Myra. We want to know what people are going to leave with that they can go home and apply. We also want to know how you're going to spend people's time. And we want to, and it's this balance between giving too much detail and not enough. Sometimes we'll read a session proposal and we'll say, I don't know what they're going to talk about in the session. They'll spend the entire form describing the problem. We know what the problem is. Tell us what your solution is. Tell us how you have a unique take on this, or tell us how you're going to fix something that other people are grappling with in their day-to-day work.
And Pam, I'm gonna, sorry to interrupt, but I'm gonna throw in my biggest thing. Tell us the challenges that your company had that you overcame.
That you have overcome, exactly.
Yes,
Not just, there are all these problems out there that who knows what to do about, but here's a problem that I know you're facing and I can help you solve it. That's gold. The other thing is thinking about topics that are trendy that you have some expertise in. If it's a really buzzy topic, we might get 100 proposals that talk about it. Come up with your unique take on it. What did you do that's different? How can you make this clear or useful or relevant to your colleagues, your peers? Give us something that makes you stand out.
So am I correct? You're kind of saying look for and maybe look into topics that are not like, as you look through the list of pieces in a request for speakers, look for the ones that you think maybe won't have bunches of people running down the hill with the same exact presentation. Is that maybe a way to look at it? Or
if it's a topic or a challenge that's going to resonate with a lot of people in the target audience, and that's another piece, pay attention to who the target audience is. Like I manage the learning show and Sierra manages the learning solutions show. We look for very different things in proposals because our audiences are very different. So if it's a topic that's going to resonate with the audience for this show, and it's not something that 42 other people are proposing, you're going to have a much higher chance of getting accepted because we want something on that topic in our program, and we don't have a whole bunch of people. Or even if it's something like microlearning, that's a big topic that a lot of people might propose on. Come up with a unique angle on it. Come up with a narrow focus that's something that everybody wants to do. How to turn, this into that. How to do the visual design of microlearning. How to something that's pretty focused and pretty specific, but also relevant to a big audience.
Right.
that makes good sense. So if it is an area that maybe a lot of people are submitting to, you would be asking, how can I make this different? Or where's my unique twist or my unique perspective that adds to the big picture?
Exactly.
Pam brought up a very important point. I've been trying to take notes as well. So ensuring your topic is geared towards the audience of who's going to that conference. I attend a lot of the conferences. I haven't spoken at any, but sometimes I've seen the same presentation by a speaker, say at EllisCon and possibly then at ATD and Training Mag. And even though those are similar, it's still three different types of potential audiences. And it's like the exact same thing, which, doesn't say like, oh, wow, so they all pick the same thing. It says that speaker isn't necessarily catering it specifically to the different audiences that are attending those conferences. And that's a very big point, because I also have, like Myra said, walked out because it's like, oh no, that's not what I thought it was going to be here in the context of, say, like a learning solutions, where I'm looking for practical, hands-on, and that, and then learning, I am looking for like that, bigger picture and all that. And so that Pam nailed it.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And I mean, those are great audience components. We always think in training, that's one of the first pieces is understand and know the audience. But I think it's great to bring that out even in the conference presentation. Across the field of training, there's different audiences at the same general conferences with different angles and different things they're trying to get from them. How about Ron, JD, what are your thoughts on the submission part? What are the things that are your extras, tips, whatabouts, or I did this again, or they did that?
I have three questions that largely echo what everyone's already said, but I wrote down why now, why you, what then? So Why now?
Love it.
Echoes the kind of timely problem we're trying to solve, right? So why should people care about this? How is it going to help them solve a problem that this audience that is likely to attend this event is likely to face? Why you? So why am I going to trust that you know what you're doing? And one of the things I often point towards when people are selecting sessions at an event is don't go for the logo, right? Just because someone is from a company that you've heard of, like, respect, doesn't mean that they necessarily have the answer to the challenge that you're facing, are good at what they do, right? I'm not saying some people are bad at what they do, but I made the mistake early on, is going to the session with the logo versus really digging into who is this person, what's their background, what's their credibility, what problem are they trying to solve? And I often, given that you have decisions to make when you go to an event, whether it's online or in person, about how you spend your time as a result, your money. As a speaker, it's important to establish credibility outside of that room. So why, what are you doing anything right now to establish yourself as a credible authority on that topic, on that problem, before we get in that room? And this is the first time I've ever heard you talk about it. It may be the first time you talk about it, but you may be making the decision harder if there isn't a place I can go to see, oh, look, this person has written an article about this, right? This person has engaged in other activities around this topic. And then the what then, practical, not theoretical, right? This is something I can use leaving this room today. Regardless of what technology I have, what company I work for, what industry I'm in, I can leave and do something with the last 30, 60 minutes of my life. And then I would just echo also what Myra said in the chat, is if you're relatively new in the speaker world, the sample is something that is requested more and more in a submission. So whether it's a sample of a presentation, I know one I submitted to recently asked for 5 slides. Can't remember who that was, but they're asking you to prove that you can put together a solid story. And in a lot of cases, they might ask for a video. So can you tell a solid story? It might not be the story you're telling in this session, but can you prove that you are someone who's ready to engage the audience? Because again, people spend a lot of time and money to attend sessions. So you have to make sure it's worth that investment.
Absolutely. And I find that really interesting. I've noticed that trend over 25 years of conferences or 30 years of conferences, that's a fairly new thing over the past, I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, maybe 2 to 3 years. I'm seeing more of the conference proposals saying, can you submit a video? Now, one of the other great things in the chat, just to point out for ATD chapter members, is that that's something that the chapter people have said they can absolutely help with. If you're trying to prepare a video or want that audience, because being able to present in front of an audience is a dynamic thing and makes sense that conferences would want to see you do that. So turning to your chapter for that kind of help would be a great chapter plus.
Absolutely. I have a follow-up question for Myra actually about that. So thank you for bringing it up, Sean. So Myra, I do understand why it's important. We want to see the person, how are they presenting themselves on screen, right? Now with, instructor-led training kind of being like a dinosaur, right? Where everything is a Zoom or a Teams call or something. Would you recommend possibly a short snippet of a webinar that they presented if they are not able to get that, like ILT session where, they're able to walk around the room and do a training?
Yeah. So I think that if you're going to submit, like if you're facilitating a webinar, it cannot be a voiceover. It can't be slides with your voice on it, because what we're looking for is, you got to remember, when you're going to attend a national conference, you're going to be in a room with like 50 to 100 to 200 people. That's very different than being on a webinar with 10 people, right? Or 20 people. And in person is also very different. I still get sick to my stomach. I get like butterflies every time I'm going to speak at conference, because I know the number of people that are going to be in the room. And so what we're looking for is like, how do you hold your presence? Are you able to speak? Are you a dynamic speaker? Are you a dry speaker? Because your topic can be phenomenal, but if your delivery sucks, like we're going to look at that and we want to see that. Like, do you have a personality, right? And are you able to bring that personality to the stage? And, if you're going to submit a video from a webinar, which is completely, we understand right now that, it's post-COVID, right? but don't submit a slide with voiceover. Like you want to submit a session where you are speaking on screen and you're showing your delivery. So it's okay if it's just, you know, at head and shoulders, but you need to show your personality.
That's a great point, and I love that. I wanna grab two things, and I want to grab Ron's input as well. But one of the things that, as you were talking through, that kind of made me think about was just that aspect of the post-COVID society and the virtual. I actually had recently, I was at a conference, and one of our trainers had been employed for 2 years, and when I've never presented live before, and I don't know if I can, and I almost fell over because I realized you could be in training and in the past 2 years only really have been presenting in a virtual environment. So that difference between the physical and the virtual is a real thing to be brought up and should be kind of something we all need to think about. Ron, I'd love to get your thoughts, but I also want to grab, well, first, Ron, I'm going to ask for your thoughts, but then I'd like all of you thinking one more question I want to get in before we move into the while you're presenting component as well. And that is a question by Artrell, who asks about if you're not a consulting company or owner, does that impact the proposals that are submitted? So I'm going to let everyone mull on that one. And then I'm going to ask Ron, what things do you have to throw into the group here, into the mix on the submitting the proposals?
Sure. Well, first, I need to disagree with JD. I don't think his voice is 90% microphone, because I have a really good microphone and I sound pretty horrible most of the time. So other than that, I agree with everything else he said, but the microphone thing, I think he's pulling our leg. You know, my issue is probably a little bit different. Similar to what some of you have said, you know, finding that niche or that thing that only you do, being the strategic training partner for Articulate, you know, that's really all we teach hands-on. So, you know, our proposals do look a lot the same, and pretty much we don't propose at conferences where people aren't going to be coming wanting to learn how to do something in that software, whether it's Storyline or Rise, or, I mean, no one's doing Studio. And early on in the sessions, you know, 13 years ago, we were pretty much the only ones doing it. Now, and I guess the people who are reviewing a lot of proposals can speak to this, there's probably tons of people saying, and I can teach you how to do something in Articulate, because everybody gets Articulate and they become an expert pretty quick. And so there's a lot more competition out there. So, you know, we have not been accepted at a lot of conferences, even though Articulate says, hey, these are the people you should need to learn from. And mainly because there's just so many people doing it. So that thing that distinguishes you, what is your session going to do differently than someone else's? I think the takeaways are huge. But even a recent conference, well, the training mag I was just at, they were real happy that we were all giving everybody a workbook too. So even a physical takeaway, something they're going to come out with, like people love freebies, free stuff. So the takeaways are also, how are you going to be able to apply? What are you going to be able to do? What's going to be different because you were here? But if someone knows, hey, I'm coming away with something in my hands, I mean, it's not like swag, but people like free stuff. And if they know they're going to get a workbook that's going to be a resource for them moving forward, that could be a big add to whatever you're doing. So we provide workbooks, we provide articles, we provide tons of resources, because we're not under any illusion. And a lot of things that I'm doing full days. I just did 2 days at Training Mag, and at the Guild, I'll be doing 2 days at DevLearn. So I'm doing, you know, day-long events, which is a little bit unfair to others, because I get a chance to build a relationship over a day that an hour you've got to do a lot of that really rapid fire to get the phrase we often use is earning the right to be heard. Just because, as JD said, you have a logo or they've heard you, it doesn't mean you have the right to be heard in the room yet. So you've got to prove yourself pretty early. And that begins with that proposal. If it's enticing enough to say, this is going to be different. And it's almost like, think about writing an objective for an e-learning module. I want to click next. And that's what we're trying to get people to do is at least, you know, give you a shot. And so our niche, because we have a niche, we kind of have an in, but we also have a lot more competition now than we ever used to have. the last two conferences I've been asked to present at, I didn't submit a proposal. They heard me at a conference and came to me and said, will you present what you just did at our next conference? And so we were already kind of invited. So I think that's also a thing too. If you do get an audience, and I know we're not there yet, but deliver on what you promised, and that makes that next proposal so much more easy because you're starting to develop at least a reputation with that group that you submitted with, and they want you back. So the first one's usually the hardest one, I think, unless you're really bad after you get there, then the second one will be even harder. But the first one's probably the hardest.
I like the honesty about that. That
Yes.
if the first one's bumpy.
And
But
Ron,
I-
you touched on a couple of the points that questions that are in the chat. So Connie said she published a book, and should she include that, like a PDF, or offer to mail a hardcover? So one of the things that you mentioned was, having takeaways for the people that will be in the audience. If I would think, if you have a PDF that you're willing to offer to that audience, or an expert, an excerpt, sorry, wine is probably kicking in, of that book, right? Maybe just a few chapters. That could be the thing that's a takeaway that you include in that proposal of, this is the takeaways, these are the actionable things, and they'll get, 2 chapters from the book. Myra, love this. You read proposals blind, and you look at videos if they submit it, right? So kind of to have that neutral, judgment-free, I know Rosa, so I'm gonna, look at it like that. No, you're looking at it blind, and then kind of go to the, oh, it's Rosa submitting a proposal, but meanwhile you've already got an opinion of, yeah, I want to learn more about the potential speaker or not. And Sarah, she's a mushy one. She wants to know, what kind of experience is she going to have in the session? I'm with you. I'm mushy too. And when I'm looking at sessions, at the conferences, I'm like, what's going to be my takeaway, right? And also, and how can I apply it? Is it even something that I want to go sit at? Sometimes I don't know who the speaker is. I look at that afterwards, and then I'm like, oh wow, they're like a superstar. They're out there speaking a lot. But it's like what kind of experiences that learner going to have. So that's really important. I don't know that we've heard that much from Lisa or from Sierra as well on those initial, do's, don'ts. Anything else any of you want to add?
I think it's important, and Rosa, I'm glad that you're also mushy. I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse these days, but it's important to note that everyone who's on here has a different take on this. So when you're writing for these, you're not writing for me. You're not writing for JD. You're not writing for Ron. You're writing for your audience. And we've said that before, but I just think it makes me giggle how different everyone is in their responses, because at the end of the day, you don't know who's reviewing these. Typically, there's more than one person reviewing them, so you'll have different thoughts and different opinions. But at the end of the day, you're writing for your audience. And I don't think that we can say that enough. But yes, I need to know what kind of experience I'm having. I'm not going to go listen, like Myra said, I'm not going to go listen to a lecture. Been there, done that. Anyone can tell me about content, that's fine. I can read a book on your content. But why should I go sit in a room with you for an hour and be a part of that hour? It's I don't remember who said it in the chat, but I can buy more stuff. I can't buy more time. With that hour, how am I going to spend it with you? I don't want to sit listening to you. I want to learn from you and grow with you and have it be more collaborative. So help me picture what's going to be taking place in that hour, hour and a half, 45 minutes, however much time you have. Help me envision what it's going to look like, feel like, sound like. What am I going to be doing? Am I going to be drained by what we've been doing, or am I going to be energized and excited about what happened in that room? And I think that those are two very different experiences, and I definitely lean more towards the energizing one. Conferences are long, they're exhausting. So when a session proposal makes me excited and it feels good and there's a lot of energy behind it, and you can get a sense for what that room's going to be like, it's going to be buzzing. 10 times out of 10, that one feels a lot better than someone who's very knowledgeable, but I don't know what I'm going to walk into in that room.
Right.
That makes great sense. And Sierra, I just was going to mention, I think it's awesome that your perspective of the idea that every one of the people on this panel are kind of stewards of your audience, your attendees, right? And particularly because you're representing the ATD conference and the national, and we've got some folks like Sabrina and some of the others in the chat who are looking to present at ATD or any of the Learning Guild presentations. To hear and think about that, about your audience that you're representing, is kind of a good idea. Lisa, how about you?
I'm not on mute. All right. So first of all, I love what you just said. I could not agree more. Listen, conferences, trade shows, learning events, they are long, they are hard. I need to come home with a real level of value, right? So first and foremost, I want to know that I'm not going to be sold to. There are tool providers that will do. I mean, Sean McLean, would I go see him at a conference? Because he's not going to talk about ServiceNow. He's going to talk about things that actually matter to me and my organization. Absolutely. So, 100% stay away from the tool vendors. And what I want to see first from a panel who accepts speakers, from a person who goes to see speakers is, I want to see something along the lines, and our speaker is going to do our best to have a fun, engaging take home. I want take homes, whether I'm going to spend 30 minutes, 80 minutes, whatever it is. I want to feel like at least they promised me that when I get back tomorrow, I've got something. And, all of us have been to conferences for a lot of years. And probably if I said to JD or Ron or anybody else on the call, tell me the best thing you learned at a conference in between 2020 and 2018, you guys would come back with some kind of Coach Carter, one thing that you saw, learned, and improved. Mine is discuss, decide, champion, right? I saw Angelica King say that at an ITSMF in 2009, and that became a part of the culture at ITSM Academy. So the value and expense that we put in going to that conference paid for 28,000-fold, because our culture became discuss, decide, champion, meaning we all get to talk about the thing that is happening, and we all get to decide the way forward. Now, we're a small company, so I have that ability, but no one gets to leave the room and say, I don't like the way that one. That's what champion means. And I learned that it was actually 2008, and I learned that, and we've lived and grown for the last however many years that is based on that. So things you get at conference are very important, but also you got to take them back home and operationalize them, which I got really off topic in that back end of the answer. I understand that, but I feel like making sure as a speaker that you're giving your attendees that kind of potential takeaway is the most important, the most respectful thing we can do to value people's time. And like I said in the chat, we can make more money, but we can't make more time.
This is so true. I love that.
Yeah.
All right.
I think something else not related to content that I thought of, if you're brand new and no one knows or cares who you are, maybe try to partner with someone who does have a reputation. Because I know at UConn, I had a VP of training that always kind of helped me in the room. Stephanie Lawless was her name. And then we started co-presenting together. And then after a while, no one really wanted me anymore. They wanted Stephanie. So I think sometimes just asking a colleague or someone, hey, you've done this before, can I just do it with you? Even if I'm just in the room helping answer questions, and then maybe come up with a way of co-facilitating so you can kind of ease into it. She was not as confident at first, and then she became really a rock star at conferences that, people would be coming up to me and go, where's Stephanie? Where's Stephanie? It got a little sad after a while. But I think partnering with somebody might, because I know some of you haven't done this before, maybe there's someone else that you trust that can help you, and that might not be a bad way to get into it.
I think that's a super important point. You can ask for help. Call me. Like that is my favorite part of my job right now, is being able to work with new speakers to help them in this process. I think Pam said it in the chat. We try to have at least 30% of new speakers at each conference. Call me. That invite to work with people, to tweak your proposal, to brainstorm an idea, to see if you're even close to the target audience, it's genuine. It really is. I love being able to sit down and chat with new speakers and help them figure out the wrinkles. And then when we go to discuss, it's a lot easier to advocate for a new speaker when I've met with them, I've spoken with them, I can see where they're going, even if they didn't quite put it into words exactly right. If we're on the fence a bit, it's a lot easier to advocate for you if I've spent time with you, if we've discussed this, if I know what you want to do. So please know that invite for discussion is genuine. We really truly mean it. At least I do. I won't speak for everyone else, but I truly mean that.
And I will say that I know that you're being genuine and that you do it, because that was one of the things when we were playing cards at the game crawl, that you spoke about that. And for the rest of you, in case you didn't know this, Ron's hidden talent, superpower, is he's super funny. He's wicked funny, and you wouldn't think it, but yes, get that other person, and then, have someone like a Ron be your champion, if you will, that helps you. If you know someone, right? Partner with them, get a mentor. And then, like he said, soon they'll be asking for you and not for him, like they're doing with Stephanie. But Ron, you're just as amazing. That's why you're here. So yeah, Pam did put that in there, that you get about a 30%. You're looking for those to be new people that you haven't had speak before. And that's also why I said this earlier, EllisCon, even though I've been an ATD member since like 1998 or 9, EllisCon is one of my favorite conferences for that, because I can, you come local to Orlando, so I don't have to travel, so I don't have to raise the budget issue, right? It's right here. Just let me go. And I know that I'm going to see folks that are practitioners like myself, and who probably, not spoken before, and really give me good things that I can take away. So, that's one thing about Learning Guild, that what I love then about ATD is that they bring everybody from all over the globe, right? So, there's that part, like, so really it's finding, as a person learning, where do you want to go? And then as a speaker, where do you want to deliver? Understanding the differences in those audiences. That's been the key thing that I keep hearing resonate. We're trying to get through. We see some other comments here related to, like if you're submitting more than one proposal, what to do there. And if you've got different ideas that are, across different topics, or even the same topic, different twist on it, definitely, submit those. I know for a fact that, there's panels looking at them, and then the one that's going to get selected, obviously, whichever one is most resonating with that panel on what they're trying to deliver for that conference theme for the year, or, for what they know that the audiences are coming for. Sean, did you have something else, as I keep trying to scroll through here and see what other questions we had
a great question and a great answer in the chat, but another one I'll add to. One of the things that drove this conversation was a group that I run for teachers, trainers, facilitators of all kinds, ranging from college professors to yoga instructors. And we had talked about conferences and presenting, and I had put together a Google sheet, which if you want to follow up with me, I'll share. But one of the places I got that information, Pam posted, which is many of the organizations have a list of events. And when you see that list of events, then you can go 3 months ahead and know that's usually when their call for paper is. Or you could submit to these folks and ask, when are those pieces? One other piece I wanted to get to, and I think, Rosa, you and I are on the same page about that, is we're going to try to lift and shift into the conversation about, now we're at the presentation point, and what are some of the presenting components that are, several of you mentioned, you're representing your audience. you're representing your conference and you want that conference to be a huge success and lots of people to come to the next conference. So for my panel presenters, what are some of those things that if you're walking, one of you mentioned, if I'm walking into a session, I may walk out, or if I'm walking by a session, I may go, and Ron, you mentioned a few, but let's talk more and dive more into that piece for during the conference, if we can. And Rosa, am I right? That's where we're headed?
Yep,
I think somebody had posted in the chat about selling, and I went to one years ago and I walked out because it was on webinar, how to conduct a good webinar. And in reality, he was saying, well, here's the problem with WebEx, and here's the problem with this, and here's the problem with that. But our software doesn't have these problems. And I thought, well, this was not anything that was proposed. And I walked right out. And I think, and I know that the Guild, I think, and some of the other conferences asked that on the eval. Did they try to sell services? And that's a sure way to get an exit and not be asked back. So I would definitely avoid any kind of product you're selling or services you're selling. I mean, you will sell. I mean, possibly some people will reach out to you and ask for advice. And if you're a consultant, you might end up getting something out of that. But if that's what your intention is, it will not work for you. It's more of that subtleness of just being present with people, teaching people, not content, and just connecting with people in a way will sell way more later than you're trying to sell a product to people.
Ron, I'm stealing that. Teach people, not content.
Yeah, that one kind of falls into both bad and ugly, right? So bad form and definitely ugly, and a little disrespectful too, right? People's time and misleading, and and we do get speakers who partner with companies and like JD said, his company will present. They partner with, say, like Rosa, who is from Career Source and partnered with Axonify, right? And then we may present, but it's a use case. It's how did this work for Rosa and Axonify versus go out and get Axonify, right? So that's the difference between a good collaboration of where, yes, I represent this product, but here's how we made it work for this company. Maybe it'll work for your company versus you're selling, and like Ron and I've done that, walk away, and sometimes you're trapped because you're in the front, and and then you're like there and you're wishing you were somewhere else. But again, it's I think bad and ugly at the same time. So now we're presenting, or we're about to do the thing. What's the advice that we've got?
So I'll jump in to say, and I learned this from an old friend, I feel like if you're presenting at a conference, your pedigree is already established. And what I see when I go to different conferences, like people stand up and talk about, I'm Lisa Schwartz and I've done all these things. Clearly, you're an expert. You're already there. So what I very much like to do is go to, like, I actually have a slide that is Lisa at home. And I hope it's not egotistical or whatever, but the conference has picked me up. So I am established as some kind of expert. And I feel like I am going to follow through with that in the next 48 minutes. So I spend a minute and a half showing pictures of my husband and my dog, and we're just so they get to know me as a person, because I want to deliver a very human experience. I want for all the humans in the room to bring home something that is memorable, that is important, and hopefully that they can successfully do something with tomorrow and next Tuesday and February 14th or whatever the dates are. So I really, and I learned this, I'm saying this for Sean, from Rob Stroud, that you knew that was coming. But my first slide in all of my presentations is very much me, my husband, our dogs, my beach, like me as a human. And then I go forward. And so when I see folks that start that way, I'm like, I get you. You're a human being that's talking about things that matter to me. You're not a bot, you're not a machine, you're not so that's my biggest piece of advice.
I love that idea. To connect on that human element is, it kind of ties to Ron's point, to teach the people more than the content is, I think an awesome angle, and getting that connection gives you things to loop into them throughout the session, right? You have that connection. You can keep bringing it back to connect the content for them based on their loves or likes or things that they have in common with you.
While we're talking people, coming from someone who's on the planning of the conferences side, find your point of contact, find your support people, find the people who are there to help you with audio, with visuals, with anything that you might find those people, and find them fast, because once we're done advocating for the attendees experience in the vetting process, we are there to advocate for you. What do you need? Do you need water? Do you need a chair? Is your AV not working? Did you forget your clicker? What do you need? So find your point of contact, be kind to them. I know you're probably stressed, especially in the first time and things aren't going well, but find your point of contact, get to that visual with them so that, again, if you go to propose, be like, oh, I had that great encounter with that human who did this presentation. It was awesome. Find your point of contact. You're going to need them at some point in time for that good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. On both sides of that fence, that resonates with me. I sat in a ready room once and watched someone walk in and tell the person signing him in, I'm here to speak and I'm kind of a big deal. And I was like, that's the other side of the connection. It feels to me like if I'm getting to speak at a conference, I want to know the right people to talk to so that I can bother them as little as possible and only bother them with the right things. Like, not to overwhelm them, but to go, I need to talk to this person about this if I need something, and not to kind of be pinging one person about 200 things that they have to go find the other people for me if I can. So, yeah.
Listen, for those of you that don't know, Sean has done beer pong sessions at our conference. And he left the props in the room and I took him home and played with him. True story.
I have tried to make sessions interactive, and that's one that I'd love to ask the other conference presenters, though I will have to clarify and go, there wasn't beer, there were just mugs and the pong balls for later in case people wanted them. But if you were to stick your head in one of the sessions for one of your conferences, so Myra, Sarah, Pam, and you saw people engaged in standing up and doing some activity, helpful?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Myra. So I would say
Wanted?
that, yeah, I like to walk into a session. I like to see people doing things, especially if I'm coming in. If I see a presenter is taking 10 minutes to introduce themselves, like, that's just like way too much about you. Like, they came for your content. They didn't come. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, they came, especially if you're a new speaker, right? They're coming for your content because it's compelling and it's interesting. You can do, a minute intro at the beginning and save your intro for the end. Let them know how to connect with you, how to follow up with you. I always leave my intros to the end. I have a slide at the end that has like my LinkedIn. I have a QR code. I let people know how they can get in touch with me. And I always tell them, like, when I start my session, I tell them who I am. And I tell them, like, after the session, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm going to give you my my slides, so you'll be able to connect and learn more about me. But I really focus on the content and connecting with the audience and trying to understand, like, what are their pain points related to the topic I'm presenting. And then, like, have some activities baked in, right? It doesn't have to be all like hot potato or, I've seen some of that, but like, if it's just small table discussions or, having people share out, like, what are you struggling with around this topic? And then sharing with them, like, I'm going to provide you some tips or whatever it is, but make sure that you make your audience part of your presentation.
Yes, that's a great point, Myra. And JD actually talks a little bit. He put something in the chat. So one thing JD put in here is that he scouts the room in advance. I did that recently. I was speaking at a local conference, and I actually sat in the previous session, which was not a topic I wanted to necessarily learn about, but I sat in the back just so I could really get a feel for the room because I wasn't able, it was first day of the conference and they were the first session. So I couldn't get in there before, right? So it allowed me to then scope out the room, be there early. So as soon as they slid out, I slid in. And as people started coming, I did exactly what JD says to do, which is start talking to people. So as I'm plugging in stuff and my wonderful point of contact is helping me get wired up and all that, I was engaging with the audience, welcoming them, asking their name if I couldn't see their badge, right? And so then asking some of them, why did you come to this session, right? And then asking them, can I call on you during the session? Are you, because some people are like not okay with it, right? I'm going to talk about that in my topic. Would you be okay if I mention that you said this is a pain point, that kind of thing? And then you're engaging with them. I also, Myra, like I didn't like, oh, this is about me. No, it's about them. Why are you here? We had a person who was supposed to introduce me. I was like, no, I want to introduce you because you're here to help me. And I need you to have eyes out in the audience and let me know when someone's raising their hand if I'm not paying attention. So I got to know that person and introduced her. I said, hey, I'm Rosa. I'm here to talk to you about this topic, but this is who you need to know. Because if you've got a burning question and I don't see your hand, you need to, reach out to her. So it's engaging with them, making it human. Same thing that Lisa said. We're going to share all of the great comments that are in here with all of you via the email that we send out. But I love this. I love this because we're talking about what's going to make it successful, which is getting to the humans in the room, right? Okay, who else wants to add to this when we're doing the presentation? What else can we do?
Sierra, you had some stuff in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh no, what did I say in the chat?
You said
good vibes.
Good vibes. We want good vibes.
Oh, thank goodness for that. I don't know if mushy is the right word, but I do feel that the energy that people come for a conference, I've said it before, I'll say it again, they're exhausting. I don't want to sit in a room and get information that I can get from reading the book that you wrote. I want to interact with you and grow with you. So as someone who's, looking at new speakers and seeing if it's somebody that we want to invite back, I want to feel the energy coming out of that room. Sean, even if it's forced laughter, it's still laughter. They're still engaging, even if it's just because you asked them to. If it's dumb and it works, it's not dumb. So if they're engaging with you and there's energy coming out of that room, I make not just a mental note, but I'll physically write that down. Wow, they were having fun. They were up and moving. There was like palpable energy in that space because they were excited to be learning. That's why people go to conferences. They can learn this content in a book. They can watch a webinar. They can do all these things, but they go to the conference for that energy and that group experience, that growing together in the same space. So when I can feel that, when I can hear it, when I can see it happening as someone who's making my list of folks that I want to come back, that's important to me, is building an experience that is memorable, not only because of the content, but because of the way it made our attendees feel. That's my mushy side, but I think it's so important and something that is easy to overlook based on wanting to just get your content out there.
Sierra, though, that's a great point. And it's something, this hit me as I was doing general teaching, but now I think about it at conferences too. When people, particularly when they come to conferences, it's not just you and the session, it's each other. And I can leverage that in a session. If I can get people talking to each other, or if I have questions that I can connect people to other people, they're going to walk out of that conference and remember the session that they attended, not just because of me, but because I was able to network them together. And that's something I've started being more aware of in sessions, and seeing that that's kind of one of the other reasons that people are there. So if it's topic or content and we get into, side branches and things to connect those people to follow up after, is going to make them walk away going, wow, that was awesome. And I remember that. So that's a really great point that you bring up.
And JD just put something which is like amazing. Be able to shift. Right? Shift. If you're starting off and it's not resonating, be able to adjust the topic. Or if the questions and the interactions that are coming are just slightly different from that, then you have to kind of refocus, pivot in the moment, right? Maybe your topic still needs that rest of that delivery, but figure out how to weave it in there, because otherwise you're going to lose people. You're not going to deliver to their expectations. Your surveys are going to be horrible. Sierra's not going to call you back, right?
And I
Great
would
point.
wholeheartedly agree. My background is experiential learning. I used to own a challenge course in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so we never really had an agenda. We're always just like reading and listening and responding. And I know when I'm at a conference, I'm using my facilitation skill set way more than a training skill set. I mean, you really have to be present and kind of go with the energy in the room. And that's a huge one. I would 100% stamp that as an agreement.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And Pam,
And
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to say, Pam, managing a whole conference, you're one of those people walking room to room. What are the kind of things when you hear in the room as you go by that you go, ooh, that one?
I'm looking for, like what Sierra said, the energy in the room, the engagement, that people are involved, asking questions, talking, maybe they're doing some little group thing, talking to the people in their row. I don't want to see a bunch of people sitting there with their eyes glazed over. I don't want to see somebody who's reading from notes or who's just reading what's on the presentation. I want to see that they're doing something.
Okay, that's awesome. I see a lot of great feedback in the chat from as some of you are talking, others are there. But speaking of engagement, I want to know, participants, people listening now, do you have other questions as we're moving into potentially, he says with a long eye at the clock, into, are there follow-up things? So as we move our panel discussion into what are the closing things? What are the things that help as you're wrapping sessions or after the session? I want to also ask all of you who've been listening, what other things do you have? What other questions do you want to get? We've had some great questions so far, but I want to keep them going. Speaking about engagement, right? So
we encourage people to share resources, and we post those on a website. And that's a way to keep in touch with people after, because obviously it has your contact information on it and it's valuable. You're sharing something that they can use, a checklist, the steps to a procedure that you talked about in your session, some deeper information about something you talked about. Sometimes people just want the slide deck and they think that's, useful to remind them of what you covered. We don't require it, but we encourage people to share a resource, a handout, an exercise, a checklist, something that people can take home and say, yeah, I'm going to use this afterwards. And then I remember the session, I remember the speaker, I remember the information.
That's a great point. And I want to ask everybody else, is that true for the rest of the panel? You're allowed to send slides afterwards, or do you send them for the presenters? Or has that changed recently in the past maybe 3-4 years?
I think for ATD, we like you to upload your resources beforehand, because during the session it's hard, and sometimes after the session, the content, like people won't download it after conference. I'm telling you, you can look at download rates. They say they want it, but they don't download it afterwards.
Oh, really?
So I think so I say the best thing you can do after your session is write a LinkedIn post and recap what you shared in the conference. Like, hey, this is what we covered. And, if you had some engaging people in your session that had some good discussion questions, get their names, call them out on LinkedIn also in your post, like create that engagement so you can continue the conversation.
That's great. And that fits right into what JD had brought up in the very beginning, was to establish yourself in front of the presentation submission, have some presence on the web. And JD's commenting, keeps a copy of his shared materials live, and that's an awesome one. I'm going to have JD organize anything that I'm doing from now on. Because mine are all
clarify,
over.
We ask the speakers to send their session materials before the conference, so they're available during the conference. Okay. We'll post them after, but yeah, as Myra said, they need to be available during the session or before the session for people to really access them and use them. That's true.
I think for speakers, I myself am guilty of this, editing slides on my way to the conference. it's okay if what you send folks is not exactly what you'll be sharing. If you adapt, if you learn something new, it's okay. I think attendees just want to have something that they can take away with, but I am absolutely guilty of being on the plane on my way to a conference and I'm still working on my slide deck. So if it's not your slide deck that you're sharing, just a 1 page of something with your high level overviews, maybe with some space for notes, your contact information, whatever it looks like, it's okay if it's not exactly what you're doing, because we've all been there, done that. Right. Editing slides at the last minute is just, for better or worse, part of the job.
Yep.
And Myra put that she tends to create a participant guide. So maybe it's like a brief summary of what you're going to cover. So if, because we're all guilty of that, like 5 minutes before updated a slide, then it doesn't matter because the participant guide is still going to hit all the high level talking points of what you covered.
Yeah,
and it does it 90% of the time.
Yeah, and with the participant guide, if you change your materials, it's fine, right? Like even if you ditch the whole deck, as long as you're on topic with a participant guide, you have the points that you're going to talk about, and you leave spaces for people to reflect and stuff. So it just kind of alleviates the pressure on you as a speaker. So just put up these are the points I'm going to talk about, and here's some sections for notes, and what's your reflection? What was your key takeaway or whatever, and just have them do a 30, 60, 90 or whatever. What are you going to do with this material after the session? Keep it simple. But you're giving them something, add a checklist or whatever. I think that's, yeah. So then you can edit your slides and continue to make, cause I obsess over that too. And I don't use slides. I ditch slides altogether. I have a slide for my title, and I tend to do tech sessions. So I just do demos straight up. We'll go to live sites. I'll ask people if people share something, we'll go there. Well, you know what I mean? I don't have a slide deck, so then I don't have to obsess over it.
Makes sense. Interesting.
Good tip from Myra.
Yeah.
We all need to get there, so we're not doing something 5 minutes before. All right. So, Sean, are we moving to after?
Yeah, I want to move to wrap up, and I'd love to ask people what are there any good? I feel I can't remember the Miss Evelyn's manners, a book of good manners or something. Any good manners tips for follow-ups at the end of a conference?
Manners. So I would say, if you've gotten contact information from people, send them just a quick note, or call them out in your summary if you write one, because people like to be recognized by speakers because it's validating, right? And so I do try to do that, because you want to start building relationships with those people, especially if you're a new speaker. You want to build a following, right? And so you got to nurture those relationships, and be kind. Don't be douchey to people. That's the worst thing ever. Just because you're a speaker, you're not on a pedestal. We're all human, and you need to treat people with respect.
I think that's huge. It's just being kind. You can be direct. You can offer your feedback, but you can do it in a kind way. I coach cheerleading, and that's something that we're working on with the team. Is kind criticism. It's constructive. It doesn't have to be mean, but I think the feedback for me is the biggest part afterwards. What was your experience like as a speaker, especially if it's your first time? How did it go? What could we have done better to support you? What questions do you have? The feedback, and I said it at the beginning and I'll say it at the end, talking to folks prior to submitting a RFP and talking to them after, of processing the feedback. Those invitations are truly genuine. Whenever we send out session evaluations, we always say, if you would like to discuss these, please let us know. Really, truly, please let us know, because I would love to talk through, we noticed that some of the feedback said that it was a little dull. Let's talk through some strategies of how we can help you be better next time, so that we know that you are invested in your growth and you didn't just want to come speak and be done with it. We want to be a part of your growth and your journey as a speaker and be there to support you. So when we ask for, or invite you to ask for feedback and give us feedback, 10 times out of 10, please do. Those are really truly invitations, and we mean it. We want to chat and hang out and learn from you and grow with you and be there for this journey.
Good advice. Good input.
I love to hear that, because I will say that, you know, for many, many years, for many, many conferences, I have been delighted to present. Some of them have been great experiences for me as a presenter. Some of them have been, I feel like the word douche has been reduced into the conversations. You know, some of them have been super douchey. So I love to hear you say that, because the feedback is the most important thing. The human experience is the most important thing. So when I'm working, because again, I present at a lot of conferences across a lot of frameworks. For me, IDLE, DevOps, Agile, little experience, whatever, a lot of conferences. So I have a lot of experience on that side of it. And I love to hear that your mantra is don't be douchey. Hashtag.
Well, I do think, you know, for several years when the guild, the Learning Guild, I was speaking at 3 conferences a year for them, and you do get to know that staff, and you know they get to know you. And so if you are kind, I mean, it is kind of a relationship. We look forward to reconnecting with people, and it can go a long way. Not that it's you scratch my back, I scratch yours, but it's just nice to be among friends. And I remember one year show up at DevLearn, and the guild staff handed me a bag, and my daughter had just had a baby, and they had bought her a baby gift, and I didn't even know they knew she had a baby. So I mean, that's kind of a relationship they want to have with us. So I think it's great to return that favor, not just with your audience you're teaching, but with the people who are running these conferences. They put in a lot of work, and they were up really early, and sometimes up late at night, except for Mary. If you know her at the Guild, she goes to sleep pretty early. But it's
oh, Mary.
They work hard though. They put in a lot of miles on their tennis shoes.
But she's up at the crack of dawn. That I
Yeah.
know. I get emails from her at like 4:35 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But they're
Yeah.
there to make your day great, and you can do the same with them.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Sierra's the one that'll stay up till, late playing the, game crawling with you. And Mary's the one that wakes you up.
Rose, when Rosa and I were talking about this, we both were coming up with like some individual questions we wanted to ask each of you, because we were so excited to have you all join us for this. And one of the ones, Rosa, I'll ask Rosa to ask hers, but one of the ones that I wanted to ask for the conference runners, just that, and hearing you guys talk, some of you are up all night, some of you are, but what Ron was saying, like, I see you walking across conference all day, all the time. And if you're presenting, you have, 2 rooms to go to, and that's your gig, and that's your worry and your stress, but you all are doing all of it all day. What makes you do it? Like, what's the win side on it when it's that much effort to go in? I just have to ask, Pam and Sierra and Myra, like, what's that win for you?
We spend months and months getting ready for the conference. We want it to be a good experience for everybody. So when we're there, that's what we're focused on. We've got, a third of the speakers are people we've never heard of before we accepted their proposal. We want to see how they are. We want to make sure they're having a good experience. We also kind of want to make sure they're doing an okay job. So we decide if we can have them back. The people like Ron that we have, whose relationship with the Learning Guild goes back way before mine, like, we want to make sure that relationship stays positive. We want to say hello. We want to know the milestones in people's lives. We want that connection. That's what it's about, is making those connections.
Sean, it's like a wedding, right, ladies? I mean, not to be like gender specific, because men are also involved in weddings, but it's like planning wedding, planning a trade show, planning an event. It is something that you work on for months and months and months, and your end game is to make sure that everyone is happy. Everyone has a great experience.
I love that. That's a great analogy. It's like a wedding, and you want everyone to have fun.
Yeah, and I would say from my perspective, because I just read sessions, right? Like I read proposals. But the people that actually put on the event, they pour their hearts and souls into it. And it's always with the customer and the participant at the forefront, right? Like they want to make sure that anyone attending the conferences are going to have an experience that is well worthwhile, right? And for me, reading proposals, for reading proposals, like I put myself in the participant shoes. I'm like, would I attend that session, right? And am I going to be yawning? And is it interesting? Is it compelling? Or is it, and I have an issue with like learning professional, our legends, right? Our learning legends who get lazy with their proposals, because you're a learning legend. So what? There are new people in the field who may not be familiar with you.
Yep.
And so you need to bring your A game all the time. And so I would say for me, I just want to create an experience that people can learn. Like I see this like school, right? A lot of people don't get to go to college. This is the way they get their education. And so, let's make it a learning experience. Like we're all learning professionals. So why do we go to conference and all of a sudden we lose that part of our brain when we're presenters? It turns into a lecture. The only thing you know how to create is a lecture. Yeah. So.
And
that's such a valid
we
point.
bring value.
Valid point. Because guess what? The folks like me who are like sending people to conferences and paying money want to know, hey, what did you learn? And I don't want to hear, oh, all of it was like a sales pitch or, I got nothing, because it's like, okay, well, we're not doing that again, right? So, yeah, great points. All right. So we are at the point where we need to start wrapping this up. This has been great. Like time flew. Oh my goodness, time flew. So 1 minute from each of you wonderful people to wrap it up. What is like the closing thing, the last thing you want to have everybody hear from you tonight?
So I'll jump in with what I learned. Discuss, decide, champion, which for me is just the encouragement for all presenters to think about what kind of takeaway can you bring that's going to impact your learners, the way that sentence from Angelique King impacted me in 2000 and whatever it was, 8.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Who wants to go next? Anyone jump in? Any of you?
I think the takeaway for me, or what I want you to take away from this, is you have something to share. Your knowledge and your experience is valuable. Don't be intimidated by, oh my gosh, this conference is full of people like JD who's spoken everywhere. You also have something to contribute, and we want to hear from you too. So pitch your ideas, and we'll help you get through the proposal process.
Love that. Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, this is Myra. I would say, so coming from a Latina in tech, right? We need more diversity at conferences. And so if you have a topic that you have deep knowledge in, partner with someone, have them read your proposal, ask for help, submit your proposal, because every conference is looking for new speakers. And so we want to have diverse perspectives, right? And we see a ton of like D&I is like a big deal right now. And, I would say like get your voices out there, because the more diverse voices we have, and I don't mean just by color, I mean, by your gender identity, if you have, some kind of struggle or condition that you're dealing with, like presenting from that standpoint, if you have a diverse perspective on any kind of topic, like bring that to the table. We want to see that, and we'll help you, like if your proposal is good, we can help you make it, great, just by giving you some tips.
Thank you, Myra.
I think that earning the right to be heard is a good one, as far as the giving them something that's of value. But the other thing that I've noticed with some of the people that I've coached on our team with their proposals is they've become an expert in this field, and sometimes that kind of backfires on them because they think it's nothing new. Well, it's nothing new to them because they're so immersed in that topic that they feel like they need to come up with something cool, unique, and different. In reality, what you're bringing might be cool and unique and different to the rest of the audience, just not to you because you're in the tools or you're in this field all the time. So sometimes you just need to think, hey, what is it that people might need? And you don't have to be too overly creative and make it this one thing that no one's ever done before, because no one might not have done it before just because you see it every day. I mean, we teach storyline every day, and my trainers get tired and go, okay, I need to spice this up. I'm going, you're only spicing it up for you. The people you're teaching to, it's brand new. So don't let it be brand new to them. Don't feel like you have to do something that is magical. It'll be magical to the right person.
I'm saying this to you because I agree so much. Thank you for saying that.
Yes. But it's a great point. You might be tired of the topic, but it's going to be brand new and super exciting to someone who is new in that thing. And so, that's the thing that has to keep people grounded. All right. Sierra, or who are we missing? JD?
I can go. JD, you can round us out here. I think that the thing that I hope everyone takes away from this is that this is a community and we are here to help and support and lift each other up. So lean on your people. My whole job is to advocate and to support speakers and attendees and everyone. So I am happy and fulfilled. Sean, I think you had asked why the hell we do this. And it's because I am full. My cup is full when your head and your heart is full, whether that means that you went and learned so much because it was a great session, or you overcame a fear of public speaking and spoke at your first conference, whatever that looks like for you. I am satisfied and I feel like I have done my job when your head is full of new knowledge and your heart is full with incredible learning experiences. So lean on those around you. Know that we're also people. We've been saying a lot that speakers are people and your attendees are people. Well, the people reading your submissions and supporting these conferences are also people. So lean on them, ask questions, be ready to be vulnerable. And we're here to help in any way, shape, and form that we can to make this your first time speaking, your third time speaking, whatever it happens to be, the best time speaking. We're here for you.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Sarah. All right, JD.
When you do
We're
this,
all waiting for the voice.
there it is. I can add reverb if we need it. But when you do this right, you learn as much, if not more, than the people who are attending your session. Because being a speaker and engaging in events makes me feel more relevant because I'm learning from you. So I'm learning what of my ideas and experience and solutions resonate, what challenges you're facing that I can potentially help with, how I need to advance either my capability, my practices, whatever it may be, in order to be of greater support and service to the professional community. So it's my learning experience to engage and share. And it's how I get better at my job, is through the practice and effort of meaningful sharing, whether that's writing, speaking, or whatnot. And my last comment, I'm a person who was intensely afraid of speaking in public for the first half of my life. This was the last thing I could possibly do through into college. So the act of engaging in front of people fundamentally changed not just my career path, but who I am. So for anyone who may be interested in doing this stuff, but afraid or, of putting yourself out there, afraid of the act of getting up in front of a group of people, whatever that is, there's tremendous value in it as long as you put in the effort and seek out the assistance that's available for you.
That was beautiful. Thank you, JD. Wow, what an amazing panel. Oh my God, I am just blown away. I think this is best webinar ever in a hot minute here at ATD Central Florida. And I am just so thrilled that you all said yes. I love you all. And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing not just your time, but your wisdom with our members and with the folks that showed up. And Elizabeth, who is one of our amazing volunteers, all the social media stuff that you see from our chapter, that is the fabulous Liz. She put something in the chat to me. She said, you know, getting involved with the local chapter, that's a good way to get started. And, you know, JD was part of this chapter. JD spoke for us when we first started doing webinars. I think JD was maybe our second person that did a webinar for us when the chapter started doing that. That's a great way to get started. And then you get that exposure, you get that experience. And then when, you know, you apply at ATD and Myra sees it, or Learning Guild and Sierra or Pam see it, you're in because they've like seen something, or, you know, they're familiar with you, and you know, got that experience and crowd following. I am just so honored to have been part of this, to bring this to all of you from this amazing panel to the members. Thank you. I'm going to wrap it up, call it a night. I encourage everyone to really take to heart the things that they said. You know, if you really want to do this, this is the best advice that anyone can get. Like, you know, they've given you pretty much a blueprint for how to do it. Everyone here, we will be sending out an email tomorrow because we've got to wait for the recording to do its thing, and then for Rosette's wine to not do its thing anymore. So the email goes out great with all the tips that were provided. I see that folks are putting their LinkedIn here. We will share those in the email as well that goes out to everyone. Again, thank you so much to the panel. For folks on the call who want to join us for other things in panel, you're not members, but you are honorary members. So if we put out anything and you want to join in on the fun that we have, just send us an email and say, hey, I want to attend that webinar. I will send you a link. Okay, that's how Elon is here, right? He was our last speaker recently, and so he's here now because he said, hey, I want to be on that webinar. So I'm happy to share the link with you all if there's ever anything that you get through our marketing and you want to attend. We've got a couple of events coming up. Most importantly, our very first live event after 2 years and, you know, like not doing live in person, we are going to be at Sam Snead, just confirmed it today. So they've got my credit card. We're going to be there. We're going to have some appetizers. We're going to have beer, wine, and most importantly, we're going to mingle in person and have fun. So please save that date. More to come on that. For the panel, if you're here in Orlando, let me know. I will get you in and you can have appetizers and wine or beer on us. Okay. That's going to be December 7th. So please join us for that. Again, we love you all. We love our members. We love the volunteers for all they do. Check out the website, follow us on social, and thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you everyone for your time today. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your evening, and we look forward to catching you on either the next webinar or our live events, which are coming back.
Rosa, you taught me a new word.
What's that? Appetizers?
I did not know that word, and that fits
They
in Lisa
make you
Land.
happy.
That fits in Lisa Land completely.
Yeah.
So you and I are going to be friends forever.
They make you happy, especially when
Of
they're
course they do.
with some adult beverages.
Yeah, I mean, appetizers are with tea. Appetizers are not with iced tea.
That's right.
I'm feeling your vibe, lady. I got it. Let's meet soon. On that note, I shall leave.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
It was a great session. Great to meet you guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appetizers. I love it.
All right.
Rosa, this was great. I actually chimed in from Buffalo. I was the person that reached out and said, hey, I need the code to be able to get in.